Hello and welcome. As you may hear that I'm outside today, and I think it's been a few years since I've recorded outside, and perhaps today is more out of necessity. I don't have access to an indoor space today, and I wanted to record, so here I am on a park bench, hoping that there's not too much disturbance with the wind or any other noises. This microphone has a little sort of wind protector, so we'll see how maybe it's a good test for future recordings outside. And I've got my headphones on more as a prop than anything else, so it may seem like I'm talking to somebody on the phone. So it allows me to record without being self-conscious. I wanted to mention an important pointer I came across in my listenings with Eckhart, and I was listening to one of his retreats, and there was a section of it called something like the key to life. And when I heard the pointer, it had a profound effect on me, and I had heard the pointer before, I'm sure, and even from a different teacher, but sometimes it can work like this, where there could be some metaphor or some spiritual pointer that we've heard many times, and then suddenly it hits, it reaches a place of depth within us, something deep within us. The deep self recognizes, and there's almost a unlocking of sorts. And before recording, I was thinking about whether to mention a pointer or not, and I related to something Eckhart had mentioned, that sometimes when things are not said in a spontaneous manner out of presence, they can seem very lifeless, they can seem almost a bit stale, and so I was a bit worried about that. And usually when I hear an inspirational pointer or some words that I want to relay in an episode, there's usually not much of a gap, so that aliveness is still there in relaying that pointer. But I sense that it's a good time to mention it now. I can sense the spaciousness, and here at the park, the trees, the greenery, the various noises of activities of the park coming to life. There's a person wheeling a icebox of sorts to a small coffee cart. There's dog walkers here. Perhaps the signs of the birds now will recede from their morning singing as the people arrive. So Eckhart mentioned the key to life is with a question, is finding out who you are. And he unfolds this, that you are not what happens to you, you're not the forms that take place, mental forms, emotional forms, but you are the space that everything takes place in, that all forms arise and dissolve in. That you are the space, the vast space of now. Not a space that is set aside, it's a alive space of now. Sometimes you can think of this as alertness as well. But it can only be accessed in this moment. And perhaps you can sense it. As you hear those footsteps, the vast spaciousness around. Those footsteps walking away, the noise, the vast space of now where a thought form may arise, an emotional reaction may arise, an external situation may arise, a person may call you, somebody may ask for your attention, people may be walking by. Everything takes place in the space of now, and you are that space. And it can in some ways be overwhelming to try and absorb this. So much conditioning on me and my thoughts, me and my history, me and my life, my historical life, my thought structures about the future. So much fear, so much chaos, imbalance, and it is just simply forms, movement of forms that we mistaken to be me. But it's Eckhart uses the word miraculous, and he also mentions that it's ridiculous to try and describe as well the greatness of this, the quality of this, that you are the vast space of now. And when I heard this, initially I was in a great deal of suffering. The little me was deep in thoughts, deep in emotional reaction to a particular life situation. And it was a huge release took place there, a physical and mental, in a very short space of time. It swallowed up the painful thoughts, and the suffering dissolved, and what was left was a deep aliveness. That is always there in the now. And so it almost, the suffering, those deep clouds parted, and the sun came in. It was allowed to shine through. It was no longer covering up the now. And Eckhart goes on to further explain that in this space of now, nothing can harm. There's nothing to fear. It is only the fictitious self, the mind-made self, that has something to be fearful of, something that will be taken away, something that will be lost, something that it doesn't want this situation to happen, but it wants that situation to happen. Now you are completely outside of that. Can you sense that as who you are in this moment? And it's not a mental searching, mental effort. It's just simply here. To be recognized, to be known. And of course, if you are in deep suffering, then this can aid you greatly, as it did me. That usually, when there's intense suffering, is when there's a breakthrough. There's a motivation and a drive to remove yourself from suffering and the space of now is recognized. So this pointer has been with me in a deep way for a number of days, and I've noticed the activity of mind, deep waves of activity that cover up the space of now, and then suddenly it's revealed again. And there's a noticing of time of day or particular situations when there is more activity, and other times when there is less. And in some profound way, there is almost a dying to this moment. I think it's the title of a video by Krishnamurti, something along those lines, and it is true in this time, in this pointer, because your life is this moment. And there is a dying of the psychological structures, the mental structures of me. And so many life situations, there have been mental structures around images and thoughts of a person and how they relate to you. There's a structure for that. So all of these I've been coming to the surface and of wanting to pull me into the thought structure and remain in that. For example, if somebody hasn't called me, usually they call often, and they haven't called me in the space of the little me in that thought structure. There would be suffering there. Well, there may be thoughts of this person no longer cares about me, or am I losing this connection? Am I losing this person? All of these thoughts, because of that structure. But then there is simply this moment of now, and in this moment it just is. And if action needs to take place, perhaps you're the one who needs to make the phone call. And it's not done in a personal way where it's you, the identity, calling this person. It's sensing what is needed from the wholeness of now, the universal intelligence that is the now, versus the limited mind of you and your thought structures that you label as your life, your various images of people, instead of being connected to what is needed in this moment. So you're not trying to live life from, and it sounds ridiculous and insane to try and live life from old thought patterns that have been built over months or years, and images, and it's almost being stuck in a very dense forest of everywhere. There's branches all around everywhere, no space, and there's almost, I'm giving you a physical image there of limitation versus the openness, the open spaciousness where everything is still and action arises spontaneously. You may use your mind to perhaps think of the situation, but it's done in a very impersonal and a very intelligent and open way. There's nothing, there's no neediness from it. So going back to the example of calling the friend, there's no tension in that phone call. There's no residue of, well, it's me calling them. Why didn't they call me? And there's no fear in if they don't pick up as well. The little me may fear that, or they don't pick up, well, they obviously don't care. And again, the thought structures will arise. So Eckhart calls this the secret to life, or the key, but he also adds that you need to use the key. So you need to recognize, it's not a doing, it's a recognition of who you are, this moment. Instead of being blinded or the now being covered up by the thoughts that say this is who you are. You are these thoughts, these emotions, these reactions that we are so used to, that being the norm that if we, it's not a case that if we are not thinking, but what are we thinking about? Thinking is necessary, and we need to be thinking of something, okay? And it's the habitual, once you step out into the spaciousness, you recognize and you sense the deep grooves or the big structure of habitual thinking. And you notice maybe at certain times of the day you think about certain things, or you worry about certain things, and in the space of now, there's almost a cleaning happening, a dissolving of these structures. The more you step out and recognize the space, the vast stillness of now to be who you are. That's all there is. And it may take many times to rediscover, and it's not a case of achievement that you need to hang in there and stay in the now and use your willpower to stay in the now, but it's a case of catching yourself and then moving into the now, recognizing and stepping into the alive presence. And there's no judgment there, there's no blame, there's no story of the last 2 hours I have been completely in my thoughts and creating suffering. No, you are, I can step into the peaceful present moment. And as time goes on, this hasn't happened for me, but you'll notice you may spend more time in the now than in the thought. There may be a vital shift happening there. Even just to spend a few seconds in the now is a vital shift in itself. But along the journey you may notice I don't know the word to use, but suddenly you'll notice that you are in the now more than in thought, and you'll now recognize when you are in thought, not when you are the small moments of when you are in the now. It will be the other way round. It will be, oh, okay, a thought has arisen. I've been present all day, and here's a thought, and here's another thought, and then you almost get to play with forms in this way. Can sense the rain starting to fall, although I do have some cover. Maybe an indicator to wrap up quite soon. So just a few more minutes where we are no longer looking for ourselves in a situation. Going back to the example of the phone call, we are perhaps looking for ourselves in that situation. Do they care about me? Am I still important to them? What is my connection with them? Where do I stand? And we are constantly looking for ourselves in a situation and comparing and measuring based on achievements or based on our relationships. Sometimes we can feel good about ourselves. I've been a good friend to that person. Or we can feel bad about ourselves. That person is ignoring me. But you are no longer relying on external or internal forms, life situations to bring a sense of fulfillment and peace. And you can imagine if you are channeling the aware, open presence, the intelligence, universal intelligence, into a situation instead of your desires of the mind or expectations. You can sense the result of that. You can sense the power that is channeled into those situations, whether it is making a cup of tea or it's having a conversation with a friend. The action that comes out of the alive now will be so much more intelligent, and it's almost as if life works with you, that when you operate from the space of now that you are, action arises out of that, the doing arises out of that, and the beingness is there while the doing happens. Whether it's, again, making that phone call, you're sensing the now, you're sensing the beingness of this moment. Then what is needed to be said will be the right thing, the right action. the energy that is channeled into that conversation will be what is needed, and it would not be clouded by a sense of egoic emotion, whether it is insecurity or maybe a sense of anger that they haven't reached out to me. So perhaps after this you can maybe take a few minutes to recognize your true self. That perhaps you don't need to rush and do the next thing. That you can allow this moment to be as it is. And sense the vastness where everything arises and dissolves. It's a nice indicator to draw this episode to a close as the dog looks at the squirrel in the tree. I hope this pointer has been helpful to you, and thank you for joining me for this episode. I wish you well, and I will speak to you again very soon. Take care.